sorry about that.
That's fine.
But
So
that
that was a neat little segment there on Alexander the Great, but we're going to move on to what Dylan's got. What do you got for us, Dylan? You just lost again. Lance, you're killing me.
Going on.
You're killing me, man. Just keep going, Dylan.
No
Lance is
problem.
going to have to figure his stuff out.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the Shaolin. Now, unlike the other subjects that we covered, the subjects were based on one person. I wanted to focus on just the society of the Shaolin in general, because not to mention, I don't know if there was any famous Shaolin monks per se. I mean, maybe there was a famous one or two, but the thing is because of the way that they live and how they view life in general, I don't think fame really meant much to a Shaolin. So, without further ado, the Shaolin, one of the most ancient societies in the entire world, and are also globally renowned for their inner peace-seeking way of life and their art of combat, commonly known as Kung Fu. The Shaolin are often looked at as pacifists because of the religious teachings and way of life which comes from Buddhism, which is a life without any conflict with others, or especially, and this is more about inner peace, but they also don't want conflict with other people as well because they feel that it's just pointless to be doing that when you can just make peace with one another. So with that said, to make without living life without any conflict with others and with oneself and helping those because it is simply the right thing to do. But do not let this fool you. As the old saying goes, don't ever mistake kindness for a weakness, because the Shaolin are also one of the most feared warriors in world history, and they have the deadliest martial art known to man that many combatants, professional fighters especially, avoid. The biggest, strongest fighters, big muscles and all of them, no, they will shy away from it. They'll no. If mention a Shaolin monk, no, they're going to stay away,
right?
And there's a reason. Yeah, the Shaolin, like many Far East cultures of Asia, were very secluded from the rest of the world until they were discovered. Now, I don't know. Now, I think there were some Asian provinces that chose to be secluded, and then there was some that were just simply secluded because they just were just minding their own business. But however, majority of Asian provinces were known to the rest of the world because they were discovered. So I want to make that clear real quick. They were secluded from the rest of the world until they were discovered. Despite the Shaolin being a very ancient society, they were actually first discovered by Western civilization in the mid-20th century. To be more specific, I want to say the 1960s, which led to having influence on what we see in pop culture, like our video games, our TV shows, and our movies. However, Hollywood has twisted the perception of what the actual meaning of Kung Fu is and its purpose, as well as martial arts as a whole. And that has been a really huge trend back in the late 20th century. There was a lot of movies that had to do with Far East martial arts that made the martial arts look like it was only made to kill, to shed blood, like Bloodsport or Enter the Dragon featuring Bruce Lee. Martial arts is not like that at all. It is not. It is culturally, it is very inaccurate, and actually a lot of it, especially the Japanese, they get very offended by that, as a matter of fact. With that said, the Shaolin emphasizes self-control and using violence only as a last resort when other options of conflict of resolution fail. And that's very common in all martial arts. Especially in the martial arts I took about 5 years of Tang Soo Do, 4 years of Taekwondo, and a couple of months of Jiu-Jitsu, but I quit Jiu-Jitsu early because the trainer was dumb and the team was a bunch of macho men. But we were taught though is to never resort to violence first thing. That should be your very last option. Do not ever look for a fight. Don't ever look for trouble. That is not what martial art is about. It's about sharpening one's mind and disciplining one's spirit and soul, and making you a better leader and a better warrior when the time comes to it. The training to become a full-fledged monk takes many years, as well as learning and understanding and memorizing all passages from the Book of Mantras, which there are 200 passages, by the way. That's a lot. A couple of very little known facts about Kung Fu is that Kung Fu is actually called Wushu. And these Chinese martial arts specifically have used to have over 1,500 forms of Wushu. But many of those in China have been outlawed in China due to the dangers of the techniques. Because some of the techniques, like the white, like Kumite, that's like Mortal Kombat kind of shit. Like there's like a spine breaking move. There's one like if you hit them in a pressure point right here in the nasal and this like cartilage right here, a piece of it goes up your nose so hard that it penetrates your brain and kills you. Like it's deadly. No, like there are some martial arts that are literally made to kill, but not all are like that though. Just so we're clear. So because of that, they have been outlawed in China due to the dangers of the techniques and also because of the political atmosphere in China. The Shaolin monks do have cold weapons themselves, aside from their hand-to-hand combat. They use stabs, they use whip chains, or my personal favorite, the twin hook swords. And why I like the twin hook swords is because if you look at the twin hook swords here, Jason, can you pull that up by any chance?
I'll just do a search.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so what makes these swords so unique and why I favor these out of the cold weapons that the Shaolin use is because number one, they're dual wield. Not many swords can pull off a dual wield because usually they're made for just to be held, just held with one sword with one hand, unless it's and then there's some swords that require two hands. But this thing is so cool because number one, the hooks can be used to tear flesh, and it can also be used to grab someone's shoulder. You can hook them and bring them in. And what these little crescent shaped things on the handles are, you can actually punch and do slicing damage at the same time. And hold on, I haven't got the best part yet. On the bottom of the hilts, those are blades that you can force for CQC or close quarters combat stab right there. And this is what I call like the ultimate form of the twin hook swords. The reason why that they're designed this way is if you take the two hooks on the end, you can interlink them together and they can swing it around and use that blade that's on the bottom of the hilt and it can slit a person's throat like butter.
Dang.
It's deadly. And I don't know if you guys heard this show, but there was a show called The Deadliest Warrior. And the Shaolin monks were featured in one of the episodes, and they went up against this Hawaiian tribe called the Maui Indians. And they what they do is like they research their origins, and they research the weapons that they use, their way of life, how they fight, and like the twin hook swords, like they actually test the weapons themselves on like carcasses and cadavers, like artificial, I should say.
Yeah.
And those, holy crap, that shit, battle ready twin hooks. I pray I never have to taste one of those because
Yeah.
those things will go right through you, like no kidding. And that's very common for most far east weapons because like the katana, the renowned samurai bread and butter sword, that shit cuts through easy because they curve their blades. And the twin hook sword is no exception either. And not only that, again, it's dual wield. It's got multiple blades for multiple purposes. And if you interlink them, you got a medium range weapon that you can just swing around and you can just cause serious slash damage. And yeah, and needless to say, the Shaolin completely annihilated the Maui Indian because the Maui Indian had like their weapons were easily countered, and the Shaolin monks are too skilled, they're too fast, and their martial arts skills just made the Maui Indians look like just to say look like they were just I don't know some weak white belt fighter. So, anyways, yeah, it was very interesting, and yeah, and there's actually so many types of weapons. Like they use like hammers, they like certain cudgels. They also use spears as well. Like they use all types of weapons, and not to mention the Far East in general are renowned for having very highly efficient, very deadly cold weapons. That's what they're known for, and that's why a lot of ancient armies at the time, like the Mongolians or the Chang dynasty or the Mughals, they were like the one of the most feared armies in existence because they knew how to make their weapons sharp and efficient, and the way that they were raised as warriors, they will kill you without a second thought because it is dishonorable to not fight for your empire.
Did
So
you
with
just
that
say
said,
Mughals?
yes, there was a Far Eastern ancient tribe called the Mughals, and they were powerful. They weaponized elephants. They invented armor for elephants that were basically modern at their time tanks, and they cut part of their tusk off and replace it with these spikes that can easily gore a person that happens to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And were you thought Alexander the Great was and his army were strong. I want to see him go against the Mughals, because those Mughals, they were savages. They knew no fear. They know no pain, and they've won a lot of battles.
The thing I know about Mughals is that they are a race in Final Fantasy of tiny little cat, bear, bat creature.
Look,
Yeah, not the same thing.
Kipo.
You
Yeah,
sure you don't mean Kupo? Kupo, absolutely. But
Kupo,
Gotta have that
Kupo.
Kipo.
are you sure you don't mean Mongols?